Welcome to The Economy Magazine. I'm Benjamin Chong Alfares with the top reports from the global economy. Today's magazine, indebted Hungarians get housing, and Rwanda boasts one of Africa's strongest growth rates. First, the headlines. The biggest election the world has ever seen begins this week in India with Hindu nationalists leading the polls. Around 850 million people have registered to vote, a number exceeding the population of Europe and the United States combined. Results are only due on May 16th, but as the right-leaning opposition BJP party leads, big economic changes might be on the way. More on this in a report following the headlines.
He is not from a princely family. He is from a poor background, so he understands the needs of the poor and the middle class.
He comes with a lot of, hopes that he has been able to create in the minds of the cadres, the BJP cadres. They think that he has a magic wand. Now, how far he would be able to prove them right remains the biggest challenge for him if he comes to power.
Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban won a clear victory in elections, while the far-right Jobbik party increased its share of the vote. Orban's Fidesz party secured 45% of the vote, well ahead of the left-wing opposition alliance at 25%. Though Orban's party won the two-thirds majority needed to change the constitution, its victory hinges on one seat, and final results could still push it below the threshold. The anti-Roma and anti-Semitic Jobbik party of the far right increased its share to 21% from 16.7% 4 years ago.
Today, Hungary has said no to two things. First, the Hungarians have said no to hate. They said they did not want it.
Azt üzenik, a gyűlölet nem pálya.
And the second is that Hungarians said they wanted not to leave the EU. They said that instead Hungary is in the EU, but only if they have a national government.
Ukraine and Gazprom are locked in a tense standoff over a $2.2 billion gas bill, intensifying fears that the Russian energy giant might cut off supplies. The Ukrainian government says it is willing to pay the bill, but reacted angrily as Gazprom nearly doubled the price per 1,000 cubic meters and canceled previous discounts. Gazprom's chief executive said Ukraine would need to pay for 100% of current supplies and pay off its debt. But as the price of natural gas in Europe is at its lowest level since 2010, Ukraine may start importing gas from the European market via Slovakia. Nigeria overtook South Africa as Africa's largest economy and the 26th largest in the world. Nigerian GDP for 2013 was $509 billion, 89% larger than previously stated for last year. Though multinational giants have already poured millions of dollars into Nigeria, its new economic status could serve as a catalyst for further investment. It also places Africa's most populous nation and leading oil producer within reach of its ambition to become one of the world's top 20 economies above other developing countries. But the figures don't put more money in the pockets of the common man. More than 60% of Nigeria's population lives in severe poverty, while a new generation of multimillionaires emerges. Cement giants Holcim and Lafarge are selling $5 billion of production facilities to offset a regulatory backlash over their suggested merger. The planned disposals represent 10% of the combined company's EBITDA. The world's two largest cement makers seek a $40 billion all-share merger, reshaping the global cement industry plagued by chronic overcapacity for years. The companies are heavily indebted and have been forced into significant cost-cutting programs following a construction downturn of the financial crisis. Before the economic crisis, many Hungarians rushed to take out loans in foreign currencies. Unable to pay off the loans as the forint crashed, many have seen their homes repossessed and have now found refuge in a controversial new government housing project in the central Hungarian town of Aksa.
This is the room, there's the chimney, the kids' things.
Annika Cherno has a new home. Her previous one was repossessed by the bank after she failed to pay back a loan she took out 7 years ago, like many other Hungarians. Due to the economic crisis, her mortgage payments tripled. Now she pays around €60 a month to live in a housing project outside Budapest that the government built especially for indebted Hungarians.
Coming here was our last chance. I could not pay my bank credit. My house was seized. I have a daughter who has diabetes and an older son, and I'm divorced. For us, this was really the last chance.
But the €8 million project has only rehoused a fraction of the 150,000 households in dire need of a new home. Amid corruption allegations, the government has abandoned the project altogether, but insists it has put other measures in place.
This facility actually buys the flat or the real estate of the families in real big trouble. They practically rent back their former properties.
Over 1 million Hungarians took out foreign currency-denominated loans before the financial crash in 2008, far more advantageous than loans in the local currency. But their joy was short-lived.
There was an expectancy that Hungary would soon join the Eurozone and that the risk in euro mortgages would just go away.
Hungary's government introduced a raft of other measures over the past few years, even allowing people to pay back their loans at preferential rates. But with the forint having reached a 2-year record low in recent weeks over concern about the country's foreign debt, it would seem there's still a long way to go on the country's path to recovery.
20 years following the Rwandan genocide that tore the country apart, it is now among the best-performing developing countries in the world. Daniel Roth has the story.
Names are carved in stone to remember the more than 800,000 people murdered over 3 months in the Rwandan genocide that began in April 1994. But just 20 years later, the country has made a remarkable turnaround. Its economic growth, averaging 8% annually over the last 4 years, is among the strongest in Africa.
In 1994, Rwanda's per capita GDP was $130. This is very, very low. And now, in 2012, the per capita GDP increased to $620, almost 5 times as big as 20 years ago.
At a time when economic inequality has been increasing around the world, Rwanda's poverty rate has fallen from 59% to 45% between 2001 and 2011.
Rwanda is one of the best performing developing countries in the world. It's not only about the growth rate, but also in terms of poverty reduction and reducing inequality. Some people call it's a development hat trick in football.
Public works projects have been vital to Rwanda's economic resurgence. The service sector is booming with investment, rising from $800 million in 2012 to $1.4 billion in 2013. This is in part because of the young population. 70% of the country is under 25. Meanwhile, outside of the urban areas, 90% of the 12 million person population works in agriculture, exporting products including minerals, coffee, and tea.
It is the #1 export, and it will continue to be so because there's a lot of expansion going on in Rwanda. There are so many new factories coming up, and in certain districts there is more land being cultivated.
There are challenges. Though the country is ranked highly for ease of doing business, private investment has been minor. As well, foreign aid represents about 40% of the national budget. This reality created an economic shockwave when the country's aid was slashed in 2012 in the midst of reports that Rwanda was supporting a rebellion in the Democratic Republic of Congo. There's still plenty of room for Rwanda's economic growth, but what has happened thus far in the 20 years since the genocide is indeed remarkable.
And now we're joined by Daniel Roth for a look at some more stories regarding Rwanda in Media Watch. So Daniel, how you doing?
Good, how are you doing?
Good. So the first story is from The Guardian, I understand, yes?
Yeah, so The Guardian was kind of taking a deeper look, an even deeper look into the economic reality in Rwanda 20 years on, and kind of finding that it's a mixed bag, as we found also. That, if you look at, for example, tourism is up nearly 6-fold since 2000, but at the same time, 10% of the country owns 43% of the country's wealth.
Right.
So, facing a lot of the same problems that most of the world is facing economically.
But the GDP per capita did go up. I mean, it went up 6-fold. I mean, it's not tremendously high. It's still about $600-something, but I mean, there is some improvement.
Yeah,
or is
absolutely.
it really mostly pulled by those few that rule, so to speak?
Well, So, I mean, the per capita tells us our story, and you can see that between 2001 and 2011, the poverty rate went from just under 60% to 45%,
right.
Which is great. And mind you, this is the poverty rate as set by Rwanda, so people are still, 90% of the country is still living rurally, working in agriculture, living on next to no money per day,
Right.
$1.25 or whatever it is.
Right. For Western standards, so to speak, they're still really, roughing it, so to speak.
Right, and but it's important to note that while Kigali is one of, it's seen as one of the most advanced capitals in Africa.
Yeah.
It's also, like I said, most of the population isn't living urban lifestyles. They're living rurally. They're living in a way that you don't necessarily need to spend. I mean, so it's kind of a question: what is poverty, and what it means to live in poverty in Rwanda. Certainly, nearly half the country is living in poverty, but that number's going down.
Right.
There's other highlights. In the world, 22% of MPs in the world are women. In Rwanda, 64%. So
right, in a large way, really, women are carrying to a large extent the advancement of Rwanda, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, so one of the reasons for this is actually walking out of the genocide. On the other end of 1994's genocide, 70% of the population was women. And so this meant that in rebuilding, women have been central in the rebuilding process.
It's really a fascinating story if you think about it. I mean, it really could show us what happens in a society that is now largely female, based.
Absolutely, and and it's getting back to 20 years ago to the genocide. Haaretz has had this piece talking about kind of how we in the West tend to view the Rwandan genocide through the lens of the Holocaust.
Right.
That the Holocaust kind of acts as our paradigm for understanding the genocide.
Even though we've had a genocide, a little closer to our time with Yugoslavia. I mean, it's not something that hasn't happened.
Absolutely.
In Europe.
So you can also point to Syria. A lot of people are looking at Syria and saying, how can we say never again? This is one of the things in the media right now talking about Rwanda. People said never again after the Holocaust. People said never again after Rwanda. And you're looking around and you're seeing it happens over and over again.
Right.
And one of the things Haaretz is talking about is that there's a benefit in kind of humanity finding each other. It's sad that happens sometimes in the most inhuman times.
Yeah.
But that there's kind of a positive that the Holocaust allows for Westerners to kind of feel the plight of people who don't come from the same places as them. The negative is, though, that it seems Westerners need to look through this lens.
Yeah.
And it's kind of, so the question is why? Why can't we, humanity, kind of look at genocide the world over and see it as something to fight?
Speaking of which, actually, there's an interesting article from the New York Times that actually takes it further by actually showing pictures in there.
This truly, truly amazing photography project that's up in The Hague right now. Huge photos of perpetrators and victims reconciling.
Yeah.
And it's just, I don't even know what to call it. It's unprecedented, and it's when you see the pictures, it's just so.
And it's actually quite disturbing to think that you have these two people standing next to each other, where one actually is the perpetrator of rape or murder, and the other is the victim, and it's unconscionable. I mean, how do they have those two people sitting in the same picture?
Right. I mean, to me, I look at these photos and I see just humanity and inhumanity in this image together, and it's so next to these photos they have excerpts, sort of the voices of the people in the photo. So one of them, the perpetrator, says, "Because of the genocide perpetrated in 1994, I participated in the killing of the son of this woman. We are now members of the same group of unity and reconciliation. We share in everything. If she needs some water to drink, I fetch some for her." And it goes on. And then the victim says, "He killed my child. Then he came to ask me pardon. I immediately granted it to him because he did not do it by himself. He was haunted by the devil. I was pleased by the way he testified to the crime instead of keeping it in hiding. Because it hurts if someone keeps hiding a crime he committed against you. Before, when I had not yet granted him pardon, he could not come close to me. I treated him like my enemy, but now I would rather treat him like my own child.
Wow.
I'm
speechless. I wonder just, are these individual cases, are these just a few of many where, the majority may not necessarily feel that way, or it's curious.
It's interesting. The Haaretz article actually ends by saying they've officially legally done away with the difference between Hutus and Tutsis, but that may not be reality.
Right, okay. Well, thank you very much, Dan and Roth, for joining us on Media Watch. That's all the time we have for you today. I'm Benjamin Chong-Faris. Send us your comments and continue to watch. We have more pictures for you.